the old kick drum like an alley-oop. Drop rhymes like dimes when I drive the hoop. Y'all must tune in if you want the scoop. The Rapcast crew on the numbers review. Hit the old kick drum like an alley-oop. Drop rhymes like dimes when I drive the hoop. You must tune in if you want the scoop. The Rapcast crew on the ones and twos.
So, it's the morning after, guys. There was the reactionary pod last night with Will and Zarar. This is the hangover pod, I guess you would call it. The Raptors lost in the most dispiriting fashion possible in Game 6 in Indiana on Friday night. 101-83 in a score that does not at all do justice just how poorly the Raptors played, thanks to +8 closing 3 minutes from the bench mobs. It was ugly. It was awful. The Raptors got out to the hot start that they've been searching for. They opened up an 18-6 lead in the first 6.5 minutes, or 5.5 minutes. The Pacers made the slightest of adjustments, and the Raptors just cracked from there. They led at 4 going into halftime. They came out and got absolutely rolled off the floor in the third. They were down 7 and had, that slim chance that they could make another fourth quarter comeback like in Game 5, and they got plastered in the fourth quarter. I can't remember being this disappointed after a game. At least Brooklyn, Toronto, Game 7. It was a surprise season. The Raptors had come so far. It was the first step in building something big. This just sucked. But we have to do a Game 7. Game 7 goes Sunday at 8 p.m. Thank God it's at 8 p.m. and not 1 in the afternoon or even 3 in the afternoon. It goes Sunday at 8. Confidence is very, very low on Twitter. Confidence is very, very low in our comments. Confidence sounded very, very low on the Reaction podcast, but as with most 23-year-olds, they maybe feel a little differently the morning after than they did the night of. So we defer to William Liu, who's joining me, as always, on the Raptors Weekly Extra podcast bonus Game 7 preview edition. Will, you all right, man?
What a title for the podcast. There's a lot of caveats on that one. Yeah, I feel... I don't know. I don't really feel any different after waking up. It's just I feel like I've processed how shitty it was for them to lose the way they did in Game 6, especially after coming out hot and then just completely falling apart in the second half to an embarrassing degree. And, we'll talk about this in more depth, but when it really dawns on you that Game 5 was like straight up a miracle that happened, it dawns on you that the Raptors have trailed by 20 plus in each of the last 3 games. And that is not a good sign if you are hoping for another, Pacers bench-induced miracle. Because, the Raptors haven't had something that worked in 3 games, consistently worked in 3 games.
Yeah, it's funny how quickly what Game 5's fourth quarter, changes, because heading into Game 6, that seemed like the turning point, the affirmation of all these, all the changes the Raptors made to be able to win with their defense, to be able to win when the stars weren't playing, to be able to win on depth and versatility and play different styles and have this mental toughness and resiliency, and when they took a punch in the mouth to not back down. That seemed like the crescendo of all that talk and of 87 games of building to that and playing that way. It was a nice confirmation that, this team is tough, that it's not last year, it's not the year before, it's not the Vince years. They're not just going to bow out at the first sign of trouble. And now, Game 5's fourth quarter looks like a huge aberration. The Raptors have, over the last, 144 minutes, they've played a good 18? Is that, would you say that's accurate? The fourth quarter of Game 5 and the half of the first quarter of Game 6?
Yeah, 18 minutes sounds right.
18 minutes in the last 144, which is super disappointing because they played really well in Game 2. They played a very good first half in Game 3 and mostly held serve in the second half. This is a team that at one point in this series did look pretty good, and now it looks like they've completely lost the plot. And, what was maybe a season and franchise kind of defining moment was, just a lucky surge. Can we get back to those? Can they build from those 18 minutes? Can they blow those 18 minutes out to 48 minutes on Sunday? Will Like, is there... Look, we'll talk about Game 7 a little bit more. We're going to talk about Game 6. No, we're going to talk mostly about Game 7. Tell me, can the Raptors... Frank Vogel, in the fourth quarter, wrote down on a whiteboard on the sideline, 48. And he told his team that they're not there yet, the job's not done. What number does Dwayne Casey have to write on a whiteboard for the Raptors to have a chance to win Game 7? How many minutes do they have to play?
Yeah, obviously they have to play 48 minutes again, but it's about the kind of effort, really. I mean, we've talked about this the whole series, but it's been a very physical series, and the refs are calling it with a loose whistle, which is fine. So if that's the case, then you need to play hard. You need to be fully engaged. I know this is not the most scientific stuff. We will talk about more matchups and stuff like that, but the bottom line is you look at the way they played down the stretch of Game 5, and something Dwayne Casey said as well, but they had like this manic energy defensively, and they were able to stop the Pacers in their tracks. And now, granted, the Pacers are playing their bench units, but regardless, even when they put their stars back in, their one star back in, he still wasn't able to get it going because there was so much frenetic energy, and you just didn't really see it from the Raptors at all in Game 6. Except for, I guess, the start of the game, but yeah, they need to play like as hard as they can for 48 minutes. It's a bit reductive to say like that. It's
maddening to me. Yeah, it's maddening to me because it is reductive, and it seems that's this type of shit that you say when you don't know the answer a lot of the times. And that's the shit that talk radio hosts say when they're not actually watching the game and they're trying to assign tangible things to the intangible, and this, fundamental attribution error of, I can lose a game because the other team was good, or because sometimes you lose games, but they lost the game because they don't have the heart, they don't have the stomach for it. And I hate doing that stuff because we don't know. I'm around the team a little bit. I've been at every practice and shoot around they've had at home during the playoffs. As far as you can try to get a sense of a team in this round, I've been there to get it. And I don't know the first thing about these guys. I know what they say, and I know how they look like after practice and before and after games, but none of us know. None of us know what's going on inside Kyle Lowry's head or inside Kyle Lowry's elbow. None of us know if DeMar DeRozan actually believes he can solve Paul George at some point. None of us know if Patrick Patterson is actually shook starting. And then you get into specific things that the Raptors could do better. And yeah, when they're down 5, it's X's and O's and rotation tweaks and adjustments and adjusting to the whistle and things like that. But when you're down 18 at the end of things, and when you've trailed by 20 in 3 straight games, that stuff that is so important at the margins kind of doesn't matter nearly as much because there are no margins in blowouts. There's no, the marginal value of defending that one pick and roll differently is so small when you're getting run off the floor. And it's, the biggest thing, I guess, to focus on, or the biggest thing in the comments and my mentions I've seen is, should Patrick Patterson still be starting? And because the Raptors are trying to be as maddening as possible and trying to figure them out, the starting lineup was actually good in the first quarter for a change. So, that's not even, if Occam's razor is going back to what worked for 56 wins, that's not even, that doesn't even look like a solution. It's so frustrating for me to be trying to analyze this team all year long, and then it comes down to the end when no one seems to have a clue, and anyone who says they have a clue or has a clue doesn't. Zach Lowe, the smartest basketball writer that's going right now, tweeted last night that he's done trying to figure out the Raptors. None of the beat writers have an idea of how to figure out this team. Dwayne Casey said he doesn't know until the first couple minutes of a game, which Raptors team's going to show up, and I don't know what the answer for that is. I don't know what we talk about the next 20-25 minutes here and say, yeah, the Raptors have to find this weird fire in their stomach and everyone has to have Bismack Biyombo's attitude. I don't know how you do that.
Yeah, no, that's well put. But, as much as I guess
the answer to my own rant there is to just end the podcast because we can't. Who cares?
No, we have to make this. We have to make this content. We have to make this content. Now, as much as energy and all this stuff is very important, and I think it's like you said, if the margin is like 18, it's not just X's and O's. But at the same time, I feel like X's and O's are becoming a very real thing in this series. I thought after Game 3 that the Pacers didn't have the talent to match up with the Raptors. But Frank Vogel has really impressed me in the ways that he's solved basically the Raptors' like plan A, plan B, and plan C.
even last night, the Lowry Valanciunas pick and roll got going, and he was just like, okay, we'll go outside of our comfort zone and we'll hedge high and we'll hedge hard on those. Yep. And like, I mean, part of it might have been Lowry's elbow or whatever's going on with Lowry, but Lowry turned in a piece of art in the first half, and then Vogel and the Pacers bigs snuffed it out. And like, George Hill deserves tons of credit too. But yeah, I'm with you. Vogel's rotations up until last game left something to be desired, but even last night there were only 2 minutes of actual playtime where George sat and Hill and Monte Ellis were both off the floor too. Those guys started staggering back in after 2 minutes, and the Raptors were stuck 6 points in the 2 minutes they all sat.
Yeah, it's crazy because all of a sudden when we came into this series, we thought of the Raptors as having this this talent advantage, and they do. It's not just we think about it; they do have it. But with DeRozan and Lowry performing the way they are, it is very, very difficult. It's not that they're no longer talented, but in this series specifically, they're not actually huge talents. I mean, save for when Lowry had a great first half, and he was great in Game 3, but regardless, and then when you get to that point, it seems like Frank Vogel has matchups for everyone else. There's solutions for everyone else, right? Like, for example, every time Patrick Patterson gets going against their two big lineups, they sort of bring in Solomon Hill, and Solomon Hill just completely neutralizes Patrick Patterson on the offensive side.
Why is that a thing?
While also being,
why is that a thing?
Yeah, why is Solomon Hill so good? What the hell? I saw a report from like Mark Stein at the trade deadline that the Pacers were willing to give up on Solomon Hill for nothing, and that's true because they declined his like very cheap $1 million player option on his rookie scale deal. So they
and now he's going to make 5 or 6 next year based
exactly.
on this series alone.
I mean, I'd almost rather have Solomon Hill than like Kent Bazemore. You know what I mean?
Well, that's a step too far. Let's let him take more than 53s first.
Well, he's gonna make like 45 of them apparently in the series. But yeah, like Solomon Hill has been awesome as a matchup adjustment. So then you see every time that Jonas has success, it's usually against Miles Turner because he's bigger. But then Frank Vogel realizes that very quickly and puts in Jan Mahimni, and now Jan Mahimni is able to contain, and you even see it with things like the Raptors are trying to make pushes, and they sometimes come up with a great game plan. Like, I thought the last 2 games of switching the defensive assignments, putting Lowry on Monte Ellis was very smart because now you have a better defender in Lowry as compared to DeRozan guarding Monte Ellis, and then you have more defensive possessions defended by a better defender. But Frank Vogel realized this at halftime of Game 6, and he switched it up. And now, instead of having the offense run through Monte, he ran the offense through George Hill, which then again exposed DeRozan's weakness on defense. And because DeRozan was burned so many times in the pick and roll guarding George Hill, the Pacers were really able to kickstart their offense in the third quarter and really turn that thing into a blowout. So it seems like a lot of X's and O's are really starting to come to play. And the only thing you can't really game plan against, well, there's 2 things you can't game plan against. One is like sheer talent, right? As much as the Raptors have tried to game plan around stopping George, there's been times where George is just so good, he just destroys your game plan out of sheer talent. You know what I mean? And then the other thing is just effort.
Games in this series.
Yeah, and yesterday it looked like a bad game in the first half, and he still ended with like 21, 11, and 6, and it was a plus 22.
And did a great job on DeRozan.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what you do there.
Yeah, I mean, so at this point, it's just the Raptors stars have to show out and actually play to their full talents, which, again, hasn't really happened for sustained stretches in this series at all for either player. Or you have to just, like, out-hustle them like crazy. And it's not like the Pacers are lacking for any motivation. You can try to hustle your best against the Pacers bench, and that'll work, but the Pacers are short in their rotation, and it's gone from like an 11-man rotation to like a 7-man rotation. And at that point, you got to have some talent on the court. And it just sucks that Lowry and DeRozan have just completely been neutralized,
Well, I don't know if Lowry had a bad second half last night, but I thought his first half was basically the perfect example of how you can play well when your shot's not there. I thought he was terrific in the first half. But yeah, the fact that he can't hit threes is really tough. And like George Hill is super long, so he can either chase Lowry over screens if Lowry's got the shot going, or he can go under them and dare Lowry to shoot those threes. He's not shooting well and doesn't look comfortable shooting right now. And So, as good as Lowry's been, it makes life a lot easier on George Hill and the Pacers when that shot can't drop, because the threat of that, the Pacers, as the series have gone on, have started to give Lowry more and more space on those.
Yeah.
The Pacers are basically playing off of everyone except for really Carroll and Patterson right now outside the arc. And that's, for a team that relies so heavily on driving to the rim, that lack of space is, It's I don't know what the solution is, because they tried going smaller for some stretches in Game 6, and it just wasn't there. That same energy and spark wasn't there as in late in Game 5. Do you think that's the way to get DeRozan going, is to make sure Lowry and Joseph are both out there, and there's a little more room to breathe and there's extra ball handlers? Like, that trio has been a negative in the series by plus-minus, but it feels like that's when DeRozan's at least, looked the most comfortable. Assuming your answer is that yes, you should try to get DeRozan going somehow and not just shift him into a bit part.
Well, I think a lot of what worked. Obviously, DeRozan's game 5 was the best of his the playoff series so far, and I thought a lot of the things that happened in Game 5 were like DeRozan, got going against the Pacers bench units. DeRozan, they ran a lot of cross screen action, and DeRozan was able to successfully shed Paul George and create a mismatch and then attack from there. I think those are things that you can do to make DeRozan succeed, but at this point, it's been 6 games, and DeRozan has been like just hot garbage. Like yesterday, he save for one putback dunk, his 2 other made field goals were pull up long twos that are bad shots, and he had 4 turnovers against 3 made field goals and didn't do anything else. So I don't know if there is a solution for DeRozan. I think the only solution is you play him less. And try to rely on Corey Joseph and and Kyle Lowry to give you a balanced defensive effort, a balanced playmaking effort in terms of moving the ball, dribbling the ball, and hope to go from there. I mean, you might have to limit DeRozan's minutes because you just look at it; he's not doing anything defensively either. Like I said earlier, the Pacers realized at halftime. He only had 1 assist, exactly, right? I mean, he should have had another one. We had a nice kick out in the third quarter to like Patrick Patterson, and he missed, but whatever. The Pacers are attacking him defensively. They're exploiting him defensively, and on offense, you just can't afford to give him. At the start of the series, it was like he was taking a third of the possessions, and now he's down to maybe like a fifth. But even a fifth is it's too many. Like he can't produce enough quality offense on his own. So you either have to sneak him in, match him up against the bench units, which worked in Game 5, or you. I don't even know. Just hope that a lot of his long twos go in. Like that's not a good strategy to winning. No. And I think the solution is you just have to bite the bullet. You have to take him off the court, and you play a different style of basketball. I know it's a lot less comforting without a shot creator on the court, as that's supposed to be of the quality of DeRozan, but he hasn't been able to create shots at all.
That's tough. So let's get into. We're tight on time, so we're going to jump into a couple questions that pertain to this. First one's from Mina. Can they win this game with another bad showing from Lowry and DeRozan?
I don't think so.
I don't think you can I think you can win this game with a bad showing from one of them.
Yeah.
I don't think you can. It's just too much, man. The momentum and the Pacers have the other guys figured out. And that's not to say like the Raptors can't adjust. They can, but like they're built on 2 All-Stars. You can't get nothing from your 2 All-Stars in a must-win game. And maybe they can. Who knows? But I don't. If you told me right now that Lowry and DeRozan perform exactly like they perform in Game 6, I would bet heavily on a loss.
Yeah.
Question from... Sorry, go ahead.
No, nothing. Yeah, I agree.
Question from a pimp named Bismack. What would it take to get him to stop shooting those horrible shots and become more of a driver distributor? I would say that if he hasn't... I don't think not driving is the problem. I think that he's tried to drive and either hasn't got the calls that he wanted or hasn't found the space that he's wanted. The distributor question is an interesting one. I don't know. We're 6 games in, and if he hasn't... He had, I think Game 3, he looked to pass really well, even though he didn't have a great game overall. I think that was the game that he really kind of shifted into distributing mode, but he's got away from that a little bit. I don't know. And then... K.Ali asks, why won't he take accountability? Well, I don't know that he's not taking accountability. He's saying things that make him sound confident, because that's what you have to do. He has to talk himself up. He has to believe that he's going to get his game going, and he has to make sure the Pacers believe that he's going to keep trying to get his game going, and he probably wants the fans to believe that he's going to get his game going, because what else do you say, really? Like, when you've played this poorly, what do you say other than, like, you're not going to give the Pacers dap heading into a Game 7, and you're not going to say, yeah, I have to become a fundamentally different player overnight. You kind of have to just do you. What do you think on those two, Will?
Well, I think on the first point, in order to be a good facilitator, a good creator, or a good distributor, you need to beat your man at some point. You need to beat your man. You draw, you contort the defense, and then you find the open guy, or you find the guy that's going to find the open guy with a hockey assist. That's just like fundamental basketball, right? And if you look at it in this series, DeRozan cannot beat his own man. He cannot beat Paul George. He can't get open around screens, like pin down screens. And if he's dribbling the ball and initiating the offense himself, he needs a high screen to come operate, and that means that there's going to be someone waiting at the basket. And DeRozan hasn't really gotten the calls going to the rim, but he also hasn't been fouled super hard, nor has he like been unstoppable like a LeBron, like even a Carmelo Anthony headed towards the rim. So, the Pacers are effectively guarding his pick and rolls with two players, and they know he can't actually create anything out of that. So in terms of distributing, he can kick out and stuff, but it's not as productive of a pass as I think we would like to be to see out of him. So it's just fundamentally he can't break down his own man. And then in terms of his confidence and stuff, I think that's something you can say after the series. If DeRozan wants to say after the series, look, I really let the team down. I was supposed to be a star. I wasn't. I panicked or whatever. I think that fleeting sort of admission of levity, like that would be great in terms of acknowledging sort of what fans are seeing and fans are saying. Obviously, you can't say it during the middle of the series, and I understand. But I think that I don't know. It's not entirely mental to either. It's just he is in a bad matchup. Paul George is a really good defender, and the Pacers have done an amazing job taking away the rim against everybody. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing really to say for DeRozan.
Do you think we underestimated that aspect of the series? Indy's rim protection. Like, they look like not a bad matchup ahead of time, and like, yeah, George Hill is a good point guard defender, but like Lowry should have had the edge in that matchup if he was 100%. You expect George to lock down DeRozan, but I didn't. I knew Jan Mahimi had gotten better. I love Miles Turner as a prospect. I didn't think Indiana would seal off the restricted area and protect the rim this well. That's on me. I underestimated that.
Yeah, and I think Jan Mahimi getting back to full health, I think, was huge. I mean, every time you see him get 2 days rest, he's been amazing.
Yeah, he's awesome. Next question. Sorry.
No, it's cool. I don't want to talk about Jan Mahimi.
I'm just trying to zoom through them just because we only got a couple minutes.
Yeah.
Raps fan Steve, even though Scorla has been horrible, should Casey go back to the original lineup to help Tupac get a rhythm? I don't think you alter the lineup again just to get one guy a rhythm. I thought Patterson played pretty good in the first quarter. I don't think it's the first quarter that's giving him issues. I think maybe it's playing the entire first quarter, and then his second quarter and fourth quarter are a little off maybe. I think maybe Casey should go smaller and take Patterson out when he takes Valanciunas out for Biyombo, and shift Carroll to the 4 for those last couple minutes of the first quarter and see how that looks. If you're drastic to make a starting lineup change, maybe you give going super small a look with Carroll at the 4 and Norm starting. I still don't think that's all that doable, because then you have DeRozan on Jan Mahimi or Miles Turner. But they got away with it for a little bit yesterday. I don't know. I don't think they'll change the starting lineup for Game 7.
Yeah, me neither. And yeah, you wouldn't go back to Scola. If you really, really wanted this go sort of semi-bigger, you might start Jason Thompson, but like this guy has played 3 minutes in the series. So yeah, just keep it the same. Yeah, well, there you go. He's like the new Patrick Patterson.
Yeah. Tommy Hayner, how many people need to be in Jurassic Park to have the combined strength to knock over the CN Tower in a post-loss rage? A lot structurally, but not a lot for just pure intensity terms. Related to Jurassic Park from Rich Cole, has Drake jinxed the Raptors? Drake said, see you in round 2, didn't he?
Oh, come on. Drake has done a great job for the Raptors in the playoffs. Drake has stepped up, all right? In terms of our 3 stars, Drake being one of them, he's the biggest. He's the star that stepped up the most. He dropped views. He gave a free concert. He came to the game. He clapped at 50 Cent. He's, yeah, Drake's, man, he was watching from the apartment. Like, you could tell that Drake really does love the team, man. You know, like, it wasn't, Drake has been a part of this whole Raptors playoff run, but as a fan. And Ashley as an ambassador. It's not Drake being there for Drake himself. And that's great, man. That's all you can ask for.
What happened when Drake clapped up Rodney Stuckey, though? Because Rodney Stuckey was a different human being in Game 6.
Yeah, well, he was like plus 29.
And he had that, like, he had one stretch where the Raptors call a timeout in the fourth quarter to try to settle. They come out, Stuckey hits a 3, Stuckey draws a charge, Stuckey dishes a dime, Stuckey gets a steal. Or it wasn't in that order, but over the course of 4 possessions, he swung like 9 points.
Yeah. God.
Or died trying.
Talking about Rodney Stuckey, man.
That's where we're at. At least it's not Doug McDermott, right?
Oh, God. Yeah.
Okay, Anthony Doyle. This guy gets asked at us all the time. He's got some smart tweets.
Yeah, he does.
Benching DeMar when he was bad worked great in Game 2. Why hasn't it been done since, and will it be used in Game 7? I think the reason it hasn't been done since is that the game flows haven't really called for it. They didn't bench DeMar in Game 2 because DeMar was bad. They kept him on the bench when the unit that was in for DeMar's regular rest period kind of took off and was good. I think if that happened again, they'd ride with whatever lineup had the momentum. I think Casey's going to do that. The issue's been that other than that fourth quarter in Game 5, which DeRozan was a big part of, they haven't gotten that run, whether it's late in a third when DeRozan sits if they're trying to get him away from George, or whether it's the start of the fourth in his normal rest spot. Benching DeMar, what has to happen at the same time as that is that the unit that comes in when DeMar gets his initial rest has to take off, and that didn't happen in Game 3. It didn't happen in Game 4. It didn't happen in Game 6, and DeMar was a part of that surge in Game 5. So I think that's why. But I think if that happens again and DeRozan hits the bench in the second half of Game 7 and a lineup finds it, I think he'll sit on the bench.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's also a thing where if you look at what's your best case scenario is always if DeRozan plays well. And then the other things they're literally backups for a reason. And I know DeRozan, many games he's come out and he hasn't played well. And I think that Dwayne Casey should try to pull a quicker hook on him. But at the same time, you can also see it from his perspective in terms of these are the guys I got, man. He's a star player. I don't know. I personally, I would try to play DeMar less and play Corey Joseph more. Like, it was inexcusable yesterday that DeMar played 37 and Corey Joseph played 25 based on how the two of them were playing. But, yeah, I don't know. Maybe like a 30 each, like something like that. You just even out the minutes a bit. I don't know if that doesn't swing an 18-point game, though.
Yeah, I don't know. That's the thing. So you can bench DeMar, but someone has to play well in that spot. So... And Corey Joe's been awesome, but you still need someone else too. You need, and Corey Joseph's hot shooting aside, like he's another guy like DeRozan and like even Powell a little bit that the Pacers just ignore outside the 3-point line for a lot of it, which still gums things up a little bit. That's obviously not a negative on Corey Joseph because he's been, I don't know, would you say the Raptors' best player in this series?
Yeah, second best player.
Behind Lowry?
Yeah, Lowry, Joseph, and Valanciunas have been like on the same tier, which is kind of terrifying that Lowry's on that tier.
You know what's weird that I just came across? I had it open in a window. The current starting 5 still has the Raptors' best plus minus in the series, even though they have not looked particularly good. It's been their most heavily used lineup, and they've won those battles.
Well, there you go.
I'm surprised by that. Not because, like, this isn't a Barry Horowitz pat on the back because that's the starting lineup I wanted. I'm legitimately surprised because I don't think they've looked nearly as good as I'd hoped. But reason for optimism.
Sure.
Maybe. One last question. Okay, it's from we pretty much touched on this. It's a question from Marshall about like how DeRozan can kind of figure things out in Game 5 and then revert to playing poorly in Game 6. Part of that was the Pacers. Part of that was sometimes good players just have good games no matter what's going on. And part of it was the players around him also not playing well, which is a factor too. Like we talked about, I don't know the solution for getting DeMar to play the best DeMar game.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some small things that you can do that we talked about earlier, playing him against their bench and stuff, but those things are starting to shrink up, man. Exactly.
Yeah, their bench isn't going to play.
Yeah. So then if you look at it really, you might just need less DeRozan. You know, like maybe DeRozan could be the backup in terms of, okay, you know what? I know what I can get out of Corey Joseph if I play Corey Joseph and Norm ahead of DeRozan because you'll get better defense and a little bit better ball movement. And then, okay, if those guys, if we so badly need offense, then you turn to DeRozan. But I mean, like that's hard to sell too. So I don't just maybe 30 minutes of DeRozan unless he's super hot. Super hot.
Yeah.
Super
okay.
hot
I will ask you a question now from me.
Okay.
What is the most important thing the Raptors have to do to win Game 7?
Well, it's two things. One, it's just just straight up play with desperation, right? I think that's something the team talked about before Game 6. They're like, all right, we'll treat it like a Game 7. They didn't. And I think that sustained effort, they have to play as sort of manically as they did at the end of Game 5 and as the Pacers have in basically the last 3 games. And then in terms of just X's and O's wise, Dwayne Casey, he has to just recognize these matchups quicker because what we're seeing after 6 games now is that a lot of the matchups are crystallized. You know exactly what's going to happen with each individual substitution, with each individual lineup, adjustment, and things like that. And you should be able to recognize, okay, when am I getting maneuvered around? I've got to move around that. And so for Dwayne Casey to move faster on that would be great. Those are the two things.
All right. Now I ask you this big question.
Okay.
And it's tough because I know you're very emotional. And you've been up with this team and you've been down with this team. Comparing your Game 5 gamer to your Game 6 gamer is something I'm going to do. I'm going to go back and read them both side by side at some point in the offseason.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do the Raptors win Game 7 on Sunday?
You gotta.
They're 6.5 point favorites.
Yeah, that's crazy, but yeah, sure. You know what? The Raptors are gonna win. The Raptors are gonna win, and we're gonna feel very happy about it. You know, even though it's been much harder than anyone ever anticipated, it's still the Raptors, and nothing really comes easy. But it is supposed to be the better team, so who knows? Maybe the home crowd really riles them up. Maybe Drake courtside can sub in. You know, we can use another wing actually. So, what about you, man?
Bad 3-point shooter, though.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. Leave him wide open and treat him like Bismack.
Yeah, I think, speaking of Bismack, I think it's weird because JV has been such a force in this series, but the Raptors have kind of looked the best when Biyombo's out there, and the Biyombo-Patterson two-man pairing hasn't been good when you isolate just for the two-man pairing, but when those two are out there with the dual point guard lineup, the Raptors have killed the Pacers. It's tough to commit to playing just one wing. It's tough to, I just said earlier that I'd get Patterson out earlier in the second and then to bring him back, or earlier in the first to get him more time in the second and fourth, possibly with those units. I don't know. There are so many. It's tough. I don't envy Dwayne Casey because there are things that have worked and things that haven't worked. But the sample size is now 1. He could coach a perfect game and still lose. He probably won't coach a perfect game because very few coaches ever coach perfect games. I don't know, man. I'm choosing to be optimistic because you invest this much time and energy and an entire season, and yeah, Game 4 sucked, Game 6 sucked, Game 5 sucked for the most part. But if you're not going to invest and kind of put your heart out there for a Game 7 in a playoff series, what are we doing here?
Exactly. Yeah.
So, I'm in. And if they lose, I'll just fire up the Carly Rae Jepsen and I'll learn to love again.
Oh, wow.
I'll just do it all
You're
again.
Big fan of that Emotion album.
It's so good, man.
It's okay.
You know what? These are my 2 contributions to the Raptors for Sunday. This has been kind of an expedited podcast because I have to head over to practice shortly. I'm going to give Kyle Lowry my arm.
Yeah.
For
I'm
one.
also willing to do that.
And then I'm going to slide Carly Rae Jepsen's emotion into the locker room when I'm there for shoot-around on Sunday. Or I won't be there for shoot-around Sunday, but pregame. And slide that Carly Rae Jepsen in.
All right, yeah.
What are you going to do for them, Will? What are you doing for the guys?
I'm probably going to... Well, I mean, I'm happy to donate an arm. I'm happy to tweet about the game and give Dwayne Casey my Monday morning quarterback coaching thoughts on Twitter, like as we all are apparently. And I don't know, man. I mean, just I don't know. I will do whatever. Do whatever they want. All right. I badly want to see this win in Game 7, man. It is the.
I don't want the season to be over, man.
So much rides on this Game 7, man. Dude, the whole team could be over after Game 7 in terms of the current construct of the team. And we will talk about that in future podcasts. I know a lot of people are jumping the gun on that. Whatever. Let's wait until the series is done, no matter whatever happens. But
yeah, tune in next week if they lose Sunday.
It's going to be like a 2-hour podcast.
Then you'll get that stuff, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, man, Raptors are going to win. I'll do whatever. Call me up. I'll give me an arm. I'll probably end up drinking a lot of soju, but yeah.
All right, so yeah, I understand. People are, trying to talk themselves into optimism a little bit right now. It's maybe not all the way there. I think it'll be there Sunday. I think today, Saturday, the morning after, quite the thorough ass kicking. It's tough to muster up that faith and that belief and that optimism. I think come Sunday, when it's actually Game 7 and everyone has the day to kind of rile up, and I think people are going to get behind them, and I think people are going to put their hearts on the line because, again, why not? Like, what are we doing this for, if not for a Game 7? Either way, we'll be here after the game. Well, I won't be, but Zarar will be here with his recap podcast after Game 7. We'll have all the coverage, good or bad, on Monday, on Sunday night. So tune back in, and whatever happens, we still got each other. Will, thanks so much, man.
Yeah, no problem, Blake. We have each other.
All right, thanks for listening.
Hit the old kick drum like an alley-oop. Drop rhymes like dimes when I drive the hoop. Y'all must tune in if you want the scoop. The Rapcast crew on the numbers review. Hit the old kick drum like an alley-oop. Drop rhymes like dimes when I drive the hoop. You must tune in if you want the scoop. The Rapcast crew on the ones and twos. The ones and twos. The ones and twos. The ones